Hey, what's up, Street Talks? The Eric from the Eric Street Photography Blog. So today I want to talk about how to make good photos with a shitty camera. So to start off, I really want to share the point that a lot of photographers think that you need great photos via a great camera. And the truth of the matter is, it really doesn't matter. Some of the best photographers I know shoot with smartphones or iPhones, and some of the photographers I know with the most expensive cameras are actually often the worst photographers. Whenever I meet new photographers for the first time, usually whenever I meet photographers with huge DSLRs and huge lenses, it's actually a red flag that they're amateurs. Amateur meaning they're kind of newbies. Not to mean that being an amateur is not a bad thing, but people I know who are the greatest photographers generally don't really care about what camera they shoot with. And I know how it is personally because when I started photography, my first camera was a little Canon point-and-shoot SD600, and I loved it. It fit in my front pocket, and it never encumbered me. But as time went on, I wanted to be a more legit photographer, so bought fancy DSLRs, Leicas, and whatnot. And honestly, the more expensive my camera was, the better photographer I was not. Meaning, buying a better camera did not make me a better photographer. And I wanted to share with you some tips on how to make better photos with shitty cameras and just the psychology behind it. So first of all, the Underdog advantage. So realize that if you're a photographer with a shittier camera, use that to your advantage. We all love Underdog movies where we're watching sports, you're always rooting for the underdog. I remember for myself, I used to have a shitty 1991 Sentra SCR with the epic SR20D engine in it. It looked like a total shitbox, but inside, it actually packed pretty strong horsepower, and I was a lot faster than some other cars, which looked fancier than me. So I think applied in photography, pride yourself in your shitty cameras that you might only have a cheap old smartphone or an older iPhone or a point-and-shoot or even an older DSLR. Make the most beautiful photos you can with the camera you already have and use that to a benefit. So the best compliment someone could ever give you is look at your photos and say, wow, that photo is so good, what'd you shoot it with? And show them your shitty camera and they're going to be amazed. Expensive cameras equal more anxiety. So realize that buying the most expensive camera is actually not the most desirable thing because the more expensive your camera, the more anxiety you're going to have. So for example, I used to have like a Leica M9, a $3,000 Leica MONOCHROME lens, and the whole setup is like close to $7,000 to $10,000. Whenever I travel, I would get anxiety because I'd be worried if I left it somewhere or someone stole it, someone might chop off my arm and steal it, whatnot. Whereas if I'm shooting with my inexpensive $600 Ricoh GR2 camera, I'd have no anxiety at all. If someone stole it, I wouldn't care. I would just go out and buy another one. And so realize that having more expensive cameras are actually less desirable. It's actually better to own a cheaper, less expensive camera, even if you have a lot of money. For example, I have friends who have lots of money who are very rich. They still don't like to carry around their expensive Leica cameras because they have to get insurance for it and they're worried about traveling with it or personal harm. This is why it also sucks to drive a supercar like a Lamborghini. Imagine pulling it out and worrying that some kids will scratch your car or dent it. So even now I have the money to afford, let's say, a new digital Leica or whatnot. But I actually generally prefer to have a cheaper Ricoh GR2 camera because often the best about smaller cameras is the smaller the camera, the smaller the sensor, the better the macro functionality. So you could photograph things at closer distances. And cameras with smaller sensors actually have more depth of field, so you can make more interesting photos like this one. And I think almost all these photos I shot on the Ricoh GR version 2 camera. And so just know that using your cheaper camera could be a benefit in terms of your anxiety levels and also in terms of making better photos. Realize that limitations are a benefit. So I believe in this idea of creative constraints, that the more constraints you have in your photography, the more creative you're going to be. So a lot of my buddies who used to shoot only on their iPhones made the best photos because they knew they could only shoot when the light was good. So they'd shoot sunrise, sunset, during golden hour, and they wouldn't rely on fancy post-processing tricks to make their photos look good. And even now, a lot of photographers shoot with expensive cameras and shoot everything at 1.8 or f1.4 or 1.2 or 0.95 and just blur the shit out of the backgrounds. They call that bokeh. they use that as a crutch because, of course, the photo is going to look interesting because you can't make an iPhone photo have a blurry background. Well, I guess now you can, but it's not. It doesn't look the same as like, oh, look at the bokeh, the swirly shit in the background. A really great photograph has emotion, soul, and a part of yourself in it. And so I found that personally, having a cheaper camera has forced me to be more creative. So like in this photograph, it was raining in Tokyo. I had a clear umbrella, and I used the Ricoh GR version 2, shot in P mode, ISO 1600, center point autofocus, and I used the pop-up flash. And I was photographing people as they walked by through my umbrella, clear umbrella, and that's how I got all these like little sparkly glitter things. And to me, it has so much more mood and emotion. And if you have a shitty camera, just if you shoot RAW, just Google AirCam presets, or you can even search on YouTube. I have an instructional video with a download link. Just use my free presets, or use Snapseed, VSCO, the free mobile apps, or just shoot RAW plus JPEG, or just shoot monochrome JPEGs. Practical tip: the reason I prefer shooting the reason I prefer shooting monochrome black and white on a cheaper, older camera is that it just looks better. The truth is, unfortunately, color doesn't look as good on digital, in my opinion, because the more noise or grain you have in color digital, it just kind of looks aesthetically ugly. I think adding more grain and grit to black and white digital photos tends to look better. So there's lots of free tools out there. You could download Silver FX Pro 2. It's part of the Google NIC software. You could just Google it for free. And I often add grain and grit to my images to actually give it more soul. Photos that are too clean are not interesting to me. Make simpler photos. I have a personal test, it's called the thumbnail test. If my photo works as a small thumbnail, it probably works good blown up. So if you have a shittier, older camera, whether that be an older smartphone or whatnot, force yourself to make more minimalist photos. My recommendation, start with a simple background. Start with a simple black or white background, and try to make the edges of the frame as clean as possible and have no distraction in the background. Use a flash. Always told in photography, don't use a flash. Flash is for amateurs. Truth, some of my best photos have been shot with a flash. The good thing about using a flash is even if you have an older, crappier camera, it adds more contrast, more what they call figure to ground, and more punch to your photographs. And you can see this, this contact sheet of me photographing my grandma, and you can see the importance of working the scene. Make lots of photos. So no matter what camera you have, just take lots of photos of the scene. The more photos you shoot, the more likely you are to make a home run. And realize that what makes a great photograph is a combination of composition, emotion, and soul. So this photograph I shot of Cindy from a low angle, shot this with a flash. You can see I took about 40 photos to make this photo good, and it was actually the last image, which was the best image. This photo I showed you guys earlier, had to make a lot of photos, and you don't know if the best photo is going to be in the middle, beginning, or end, so you just have to make a lot of photos, and then afterwards when you go home, choose your best image. This photo I shot of a man by the lake. Funny enough, shot this during the day with a flash. That's why the flowers are popping out at you. And just don't give up, just hustle, make a lot of photos. I shot 32 photos of the scene to make the best one, and the best photo is the last photo. So, conclusion. Realize photography isn't about making great photos. It's not about getting tons of likes on your social media feeds. It's about making personal photos which really help you reflect on what it means to be a human being, to reflect on death, to reflect on life. I know for myself personally, the reason I make photos is it helps me appreciate my loved ones more. So for example, my mom was traveling with me and Cindy and her mom through Vietnam and Korea for about 2-3 weeks. And this is one photo I shot in Hanoi of her sleeping in the bed. And to me, it looks like she's in a casket and she looks dead. If things pan out the way they do, my mom's gonna die before I do. And whenever I look at this image, it's a constant meditation reminder to appreciate my mom, the short time we have together. And so when you're making photos, realize it doesn't matter what your camera is, as long as your photos have meaning. So hope these tips are useful to you. My practical advice is just shoot with your smartphone, shoot with the camera you already have. embrace the limitations of your camera and make the best out of it. If you're shooting with a camera that's just super big, fat, and heavy, I recommend getting a Ricoh GR version 2. I think you get them for about like $600 on Amazon or B&H or whatever website, or just shoot with your smartphone. And ultimately, don't make photos, make meaning. All right, thanks for watching, guys.